Great. Okay, this is the Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. It's 7:30 meeting of the Town of Ossining Planning Board. Let's go around the screens and introduce ourselves. Valerie?
Valerie Menastra, the town planner for the planning board.
Jim?
Jim Bassinas, board member.
Sandy?
Sandy Anelli, secretary.
Gareth?
Gareth Upham, planning board member.
Dan?
Dan Ciarcia, consulting engineer to the planning board.
Kathy?
Kathy Zalantis, planning board attorney.
Carolyn?
Carolyn Stevens, planning board member.
Donna?
Donna Sharrett, planning board member.
And I'm Ching-Hwa Chin, chair. The first item on the agenda is the Rinaldi subdivision, 39 Stormytown Road, 10-lot subdivision, final subdivision review, and it's a public hearing. Sandy, by the way, are there any members of the public interested in this matter?
Yes, there are.
Yes, I believe there's several people here that will want to speak at some point.
Okay. So is the applicant here?
Yes.
Good, okay. Does the applicant want to add anything more to their presentation? Or start their presentation?
Well, I have with me here also Paul Bertet, which is the engineer for the project. We wanted to make sure we had the public hearing, and we wanted to discuss the location of the sidewalk as we go along. And there were a couple of comments. I know that she wanted to address that the use in the list that has been mentioned on the memo about again. The plants are from the native list, and we added that note in reference to invasive species. We also added a detail about the rain garden.
Mr. Hernandez, is your audio, can you improve your audio?
Can you hear me well now, or?
A little bit better.
Okay.
Was anybody else hearing problems, or is it just mine?
Sounds bad.
Yeah.
Okay, you were barely, I could barely understand what you were saying.
I'm going to put everybody on mute except for JB.
Okay, can hopefully now sounds better or louder? Good. So Sandy, am I good now? Good. Okay. So we did submit some of the changes we spoke about the last time. We are talking about, we would like to have the public hearings and get that part of the process. We have Paul Bertet, the engineer for the project, as well, that he can answer some of the engineering questions. And I know that I still saw a comment in one of Valerie's comments about the plant list. I just want to make sure that the plant list that we have is based at a native plant list. And we did add the note since the last meeting for to remove the invasive species. Also, there is now a detail for the rain garden as that was requested. So, I don't know, is Paul, are you on? Do you want to talk about I know we wanted to discuss the sidewalk location.
Sure. Last meeting, Paul Bertet from Fusion. Last meeting, we talked about where to put the sidewalk, and I think maybe we had indicated that we would look at putting it on Stormytown instead of the cul-de-sac, because it didn't necessarily make sense to have a sidewalk on that short cul-de-sac. However, after looking at the grading that we required to install that on Stormytown, you've got a significant knoll that will be part of Lot 1 to be taken down, and that's going to be a challenge, also an environmental impact that I think we can avoid by just putting it in the cul-de-sac. So we were proposing a 4-foot sidewalk. I think it had come after the submission, but in talking with the owner, it makes more sense and is more practical to, if we're going to have a sidewalk, to include it on the cul-de-sac to get people out to Stormytown Road. I just want to kind of reiterate that even though that is a short cul-de-sac and it's a private homes, that we feel that may not be something that's additional impervious surface that may be necessary, but we understand that the town is interested in pursuing a sidewalk program, and for this project, after looking at it, it makes more sense to just put it in the proposed cul-de-sac. So we'll make that modification as part of the next, and it'll be included on the plat to have that 4-foot sidewalk on in the cul-de-sac.
So if I could make a comment, it seems like you started by saying we all agreed that it didn't make a whole lot of sense to put a sidewalk in the cul-de-sac. It's a short cul-de-sac. But then you went on to describe the challenge of putting a sidewalk up on Stormytown.
Yeah.
And now you're saying it makes more sense to put it, because of those challenges, it makes more sense to put it in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
But it's
I mean,
really it's a financial decision, or it's a financial consideration more than anything else, right?
no, I think it's more of an environmental concern. You've got a significant slope that is within that right-of-way that would have to be chopped out. A significant, I'm assuming I believe it's rock. We haven't done any borings, but you're going to be creating a very significant excavation along Stormytown Road, which would be an environmental concern. And that would be the reason why, if the board still is insistent on having sidewalks as part of this project, that, you know, it's not as much cost because there's more sidewalk to put on the cul-de-sac itself. But just in terms of practicality of installing a sidewalk on that, knowing that you have that significant cut right up against the road, that will compromise and put it in the on the cul-de-sac. I mean, ideally, we don't think it makes sense in the cul-de-sac either, but as part of the we understand that the board is, you know, would like to further the sidewalk program, so that's why we're kind of coming around full circle to going back in the cul-de-sac. Not necessarily a financial decision, no.
Well, if it's not a financial decision, but you're saying it's more of an environmental decision, let's look at the environmental impact of that.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to me offhand, without knowing the details, that it would be a major impact. Especially if during the excavation, all proper procedures for erosion control, et cetera, were followed. So I would encourage pursuing that further before giving up on it.
Let me just take you, maybe I can share my screen here and take you through what we're looking at and why we've kind of come full circle with that to, I'm just grabbing it on my screen. I can, as soon as I'm ready, I can share that. Is it possible to grab the screen? Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where we're talking about what our concern was in installing a sidewalk along Stormytown. We have this, can you see my cursor along here?
Yes.
Okay. So we have an elevation change of about, we have 340 elevation at the right-of-way here, and then we go down to elevation 328. And this is all within the right-of-way of the road of Stormytown. So putting this sidewalk in and putting it a safe distance back we would be taking this slope down, approximately 12-foot slope. And logistically, number one, closing down Stormy Town, but just that mass of earth moved to put in the 4-foot sidewalk would be a large undertaking. I'm not sure if you guys if I have enough of the screen shared to show that grading change in this.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. I see that it's a lot of material.
The rest of it is okay because we're pretty flat along Stormy Town here, and as we get up towards the stop sign, it gets flat. But we've got this knoll here that is significant. It's a 12-foot. It's a 12-foot grade change, and to cut it back, we'd be really hampering lot 1, reducing that usable yard. Lot 2's got some room here because we're coming off of the new cul-de-sac, but forget geometry of the lots. My concern was when we really studied this is that significant cut for the benefit of that 4-foot sidewalk, and that was why I came full circle.
So if it is, if it's rock as opposed to soil,
yeah,
you could end up with a sheer wall of like almost 10 feet in places, right?
Yeah, we could. It would be a sheer. It would be a, there would be some cant to it, but it would be. We wouldn't have to go into the lots, I guess, to get that slope cut back.
Right.
Yep.
I wouldn't give up on it if it's not tremendous financial burden. Could you use that blasted material anywhere?
Well, that's not. I wouldn't. I don't think the owner would, but I don't think we would propose to blast just with the proximity of the existing houses nearby.
Oh, okay. Just chop it away.
Yeah, it would be chipped away, and just the width of Stormy Town Road, you wouldn't be able to do that from the top with proper protection along that shoulder. It's not impossible. We could do anything, right? You got the right machines, but I just think the practicality of removing that portion of that shoulder becomes really challenging. And it's something that, I would ask the board to kind of look at that condition and say, is that really the benefit for the town in terms of getting that, removing all of that mass and rock for that sidewalk? Which is why I kind of, we circled back and said, that doesn't seem to make sense.
And I want to hear the other board members, but I'm still for it. If you say it's, technically feasible and, similar financial consideration to the alternative, I wouldn't mind a walkway with a rock wall on the right side, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, that rock removal, if it is rock or if it is earth, you've got maintenance protection of traffic. It is I can't tell you what the difference in the amount is, and I can come back to you with that, but it is definitely something that would be a much larger scope of work financially to put that in. But yeah, I would love to hear the other board members too.
Oh, I thought you said that it was not a financial consideration.
No, well, it ends up, the rationale by not doing that is it's more environmental in terms of removing and having that disturbance of rock along the shoulder. I'm taking financial out of it, but if we're going to talk about financial, it is significant to take that much earth out along a traveled way with no room to manage traffic and having to do it from the top. But I don't have the numbers to give you, so I could, if that's something that the board wants to look at, I can talk about the financial hardship, but just environmentally, I just want to present that scenario here of what that would physically take to do to put that in.
Right, logistically, I agree that's a challenge with the road.
Yeah.
I don't agree that it's a an environmental issue.
There any other opinions on that?
I mean, there's one other thing, I guess we'd have to look at sight distance, but the other thing to consider is maybe putting a crosswalk in and run the sidewalk on the other side of the street. Depends if the right of way is available. You don't want to put a crosswalk in a dangerous location. But on the other side, I think it would be more like just, the amount of excavation would be limited.
I don't have that survey in front of me, but I just knowing the road, I think you're right, Dan. You don't have that grade change that we're talking about, but I just don't know what where the edge of road is compared to the lot lines are to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I understand. But I'm just putting it out there as another possible solution toward achieving the goal of a walkable Stormingtown Road.
Sure.
I like that idea. Like, can we like explore that if it was less work and less impact? Just to see if it would be less impact for earth removal.
Mm-hmm.
Because my concern about you doing it and where, what you're saying with all that removal, if it wasn't all rock and it was, you might have to build a wall or some kind of supporting,
Right.
material. Like that. Right now it's unknown, but if there was a way to do a crosswalk and go to the other side, that'd be great because that would still achieve the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be down for that as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk with the owners and also look at that geometry and see what that would be. That's if that's that's an option.
Might I also suggest that we get an opinion from the town as to what side of Stormingtown Road that they would best see fit to have sidewalks installed?
Sounds good.
Maybe from like the town highway supervisor, just to get their thoughts on the matter.
I think that's a good idea, Valerie.
Okay. Don, you wanted to say something? The owner wanted to say something? I don't know if it's possible to unmute Donna Chick. Nope.
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, what are the options for having a more narrow sidewalk? Would that help alleviate some of your issues in terms of that particular location, other than putting the sidewalk on the opposite side of the road?
Yeah, no, because the slope starts basically within a couple of feet of the edge of pavement. You can see these contours are really close together and they go right up to the edge of pavement, which is the shaded area. So,
hey, Paul, do you hear me now?
I can hear you, Don.
Yeah.
Hey, JB.
Yes.
Hi, board. Hi, guys. Thank you for taking the time to hear this application tonight. So I just want to chime in quickly with sidewalk, if that's if the board would like to hear.
Sure.
Okay. So I had spoke with Paul with Fusion and JB a little earlier this evening. We're not opposed to putting a sidewalk in. Obviously, if we were going to put a sidewalk in, we would like to put it in the development in the cul-de-sac. Along Stormingtown on the side of the cul-de-sac can become very mentioned that Just if there is rock, which is a good chance it will be, it will take a lot of time. It'll be relatively difficult to protect the traffic and just pedestrians that are outside from hammering rock. We can do it, obviously. And we also discussed putting it on the other side of the road. One of the concerns is the other side of the road is we would be impacting neighbors on the other side of the road and doing that. So we're not against putting a sidewalk in or the financial cost that it would be. One of the recommendations I made with Paul and JB is we would rather deposit the cost of that sidewalk, a reasonable cost, to the town of Ossining, so that you guys can continue existing sidewalks somewhere that would be more feasible which would be more beneficial for current residents of the town, along with the town itself. Because right now, if we do put nowhere and end nowhere for an undetermined period of time, but if there's a section of the town that could use to continue an existing sidewalk or to repair sidewalk that's necessary, as an applicant, we don't have a problem depositing the money into the town, the cost to do that sidewalk. I mean, it's not a financial reason. We're not against the sidewalk. We just would rather see it go somewhere where it would be beneficial immediately. So that's really what I discussed with Paul and JB. I understand the concerns. It is hard to build a sidewalk on a Stormy Town roadside. It would be easier and to construct across the street. I just don't see where it would start or where it would end. So I would just prefer to have a financial consideration with the town to pay for that much sidewalk in the town. But I'll leave it there and let the guys take over from there.
Has this been discussed with the town board before?
This was first brought to my attention about, I believe, 1 month ago, and I got on a call with the guys. So this was relatively new to us and to factor it into the project. So I don't know if it's been reviewed with the town. I'll pass it on to you guys from here.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I think unless JB has, but this came up at last meeting, so that was why we're just mulling it over, thinking the best location.
Originally during the preliminary presentation last year, during the preliminary approvals, the conversation was to request a waiver for sidewalks and street lights. And I think we all agree on the streetlights, but it wasn't until the last time around, or a few months ago, that the conversation came up and the discussion about the sidewalk and where to put the sidewalk evolved. Originally, the idea was to have a waiver for sidewalk and streetlights.
Okay, so it sounds basically like the town board has not really considered such a solution before. And I'm not sure that we would have, does the planning board have the ability to make such a accommodation? Valerie? Kathy?
Well, if it's in connection with the subdivision, yes, but I do think it's appropriate to get input from the town.
Okay.
When we say, I just want to be clear. When we say in the town, are we talking about town board, or are we talking about DPW?
I can reach out to the town highway
Okay.
supervisor, Pete Connolly.
Okay, Valerie, do you have any comments at this time?
I had a few comments that I submitted. Really, to a larger extent, the applicant has met a number of the conditions that were required as part of the preliminary plat approval resolution. So there's still a few outstanding items, and one includes the actual final plat. The second deals with final sign off from the planning board engineer. The third item is what we were just discussing, the waiver and whether street lighting and whether it's going to be sidewalks, and ultimately where are the sidewalks going to be located. Those would need to be identified on the final plat. And then also, in addition to Westchester County Department of Health for proposed water supply and sewage, that would also have to be identified on the final plat. And then the last few things just to note, once you do for final subdivision approval, I would also note with landscaping that maybe they would consider, while they still put on, they added the rain garden, but maybe note that the plantings should be native and they must be maintained, and species that do not survive beyond the first and second year must be replaced. The applicant would have to provide affordable housing per the affordable housing regulations, and that would be 1 unit. And then finally, the board still needs to decide how to deal with the requirements for parks in lieu of, and whether the applicant would need to provide recreation fees associated with its subdivision application. I mean, excuse me, the final site plan subdivision approval.
Okay. Has the applicant had a chance to see these comments?
They should have received those, and at least the conditions for the final subdivision plat approval have been carried over from the previous month.
Okay. Does the applicant have any responses at this time?
Well, is the only question we have about is the plans. So that's a note we wanted to add to the final plat, because they are in fact, we did select them. This was through the process before from their a list that the town provided us.
I think this is just really referring to the rain garden. I was just
Okay.
suggesting to add that onto the plat, since then those species haven't been identified.
Dan, did you have any comments at this time?
Come in.
Dan?
Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah, no, I had a couple of comments. On our last memo, we had actually quite a few comments on the engineering plans, which we actually just got a revised set today, so I really had a chance to reference, compare my last memo to the comments. But we did get a set of JB's plans, excuse me, and I had a couple of comments with respect to that. As Valerie mentioned, we need to get a hold of the plat. That's an important thing now to advance this thing to the next level. We requested the infiltration practices be overlaid with the slope map to determine whether those are appropriate locations for those stormwater practices. I have concerns about the retaining wall. I would say that it's not a detail you can build from, and a wall of that height, which is still not clear because there's discrepancies between the engineering plan and the section that appears on the architectural set. In that the architectural set would lead you to believe that it's from the back of curb, just pretty much goes straight, it's pretty much dead flat to the back, to the top of the wall. Whereas depending where you look on the grading plan, it looks like there's like a 4-foot drop that's up behind the curb. So we need to get those, we want to get those drawings coordinated, and ultimately we're going to need a retaining wall design that would be suitable to put a building permit for this thing.
Do you need that retaining wall design for building permit in advance of approving the final subdivision?
Well, I think more important is that, top of wall, bottom of wall, and grading around it is consistent. I don't want the board to believe that it's dead flat from the back of the curb when it actually slopes down quite a bit past the curb.
Yeah, we're, just so that everybody's clear, we're talking about the wall right at this portion of the cul-de-sac, if I'm still sharing my screen.
Right, yeah, so that's the main
Folks,
wall, and that's in the
whoever's
right
not
of way.
muted, could they mute themselves if they're not talking? Hearing a lot of feedback.
Yeah, that's not a problem, Dan. We can advance that grading. We've looked at that. We're proposing cantilever retaining wall in that location. So
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the stone
footing is all
facing and all
entirely
that,
within the,
you know, it's a tricky
Sure.
proposition depending on how high the wall is with a footing design like that, so.
yeah.
You know, perhaps at the site plan, what we can do is just put a note on there reinforcing the fact that a building permit will be required for that structure. It's going to be in the right of way dedicated to the town, so ultimately we'll be responsible for it. But yeah, I just want to make sure we're on the same page with how the grades between the cul-de-sac and retaining wall will be treated.
Yep. Yeah, that the plat will also show. Merritt's is preparing the plat for us. We're putting, just as a note, as this gets prepared, and that will also bring us to the application for the water main extension from the health department. That's with the health department. But we're putting the drainage that's in lot 5 in an easement dedicated to the town. That's dealing with the stormwater from the road, as well as this bioretention basin that's between the right of way of the cul-de-sac and the drainage. That'll also be within an easement. That'll also be shown on the plat. And of course, the final location of where the sidewalk goes to. Although if it's off the property, I guess the sidewalk would just be part of the site plan, not part of the plat. But yeah, we can make those notes on the site plan for that retaining wall here too, and we've got the overlay done for the drainage
Okay.
in the slopes. We're kind of limited to where things are going, but I think we've got a solution that we can, certainly mitigate our runoff to the pre-development rate.
All right, and the final note, again, was a coordination issue that the rain garden detail that's shown on JB's plan looks different than the rain garden that's shown on the engineering set. So
yeah,
so the drawing's got to be coordinated, or one drawing governs what it's going to be.
Yeah, well, JB and I will handle that. We'll probably end up merging these in one set.
Okay. All right, so yeah, we got to do a final review of the latest things, but if something else is forthcoming, this quick scan, I saw a couple other things on the plans we got today that need to be adjusted. So I'll be in touch with you for on that.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Hey, it sounds like the applicant's got a lot of work to do ahead with this. Are there members of the public present for this matter?
Yes.
Who wish to speak?
No.
I have some comments too, so maybe after.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the public hasn't run off on us.
Yeah, no, they haven't.
Okay. So, board members, any comments at this time? Donna?
Yeah, I have a few. So first, I don't think I ever said, but I definitely would. I'm definitely in favor of waivering the streetlights. So I just wanted to make that official. And I look forward to the further discussion of the sidewalk. So I had brought up last time my concern about the road being right next to such steep slopes. So I was wondering if, and I had asked for the stone wall to be extended and then another one added. So if that doesn't look like it's been addressed, but I was wondering, I guess I'll ask Valerie, if this could be referred to Pete Connolly and the Highway Department Supervisor and Paul Ferroli or whoever would be looking at road situations, because I think there's going to have to be like a guardrail or something. I mean, you can't just have a road right next to a cliff. And maybe John Hamilton, I don't know, but I think I would definitely want them or someone to look at that as a safety issue, because you know, one icy night with a driver goes off the road down that cliff, that would be really bad. I don't see that. So did they add a guardrail there? Is that what that red line is?
Yeah, I was just kind of highlighting this location is, I think that's where we were talking about last meeting. We put we noted that here.
Okay, so are you going to put a guardrail or a wall or what?
We were proposing a guide rail.
Okay, and then also like continuing around the cul-de-sac. So would that be, I see you have a guardrail. Would you just continue that around? It just seems like it needs to be a lot longer than it is.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that, and we can also work with the highway department to make sure that we have the safety concerns nailed.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Also, it said that the wall is going to have stone veneer. Is that, did you present samples of what that's going to look like, the wall?
We did not. That's for the benefit of neighbors. So whatever, I don't know if there's any we would just propose a natural stone, but we didn't JB, I'm hopeful not talking for you, but I don't think we proposed any samples yet.
Just to remind you, very early in the process, you agreed to make it natural stone.
Yep.
Not any artificial stone material. Yeah. So
thank you, Gary. I wanted to mention that during the preliminary presentation, we did show. I can bring that back. We did show the board type of stone that was agreed upon.
Okay.
We knew that.
Okay. That was probably before I was here, so that's why I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I have two other things. One is that I don't know why I didn't notice it before, but you have 300 feet of the stream is culverted on the property, and then you're putting a rain garden right next to where there's a culverted stream. So it just seems like I'm not sure why the stream is why you wouldn't just daylight the stream instead of building a rain garden right next to a culverted stream. Like, why wouldn't it just be a daylight that part of the stream? Yeah, the whole line. The whole line at the ends. It goes all the way down. It's quite an. I'm just surprised anybody ever did that. That they put the culvert all the way down that slope.
Yeah, that's all. This is the culvert that you're talking about.
Right.
And it daylights over here.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like 300 feet. So do you have any, like, why was that done? Like that they put the culvert all the way down that slope? Like, I mean, I just think, but I mean, my bigger, I'm just baffled by the whole thing, but then putting a rain garden right next to a culverted stream, which the stream would be, would naturally do what a rain garden does, right? Am I missing something? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something.
No, good point, Donna. We had actually talked about that culverted stream being daylighted very early on, but it got overridden for some reason. I don't quite remember what, but yeah, I agree with Donna's point entirely. It does seem silly to have the bioswale right next to that. They're working at cross purposes almost.
So just to clarify though, is the rain garden, what is the intent? What water are you intending to go into the rain garden? Is it that the water that comes out of the culvert by Stormytown Road overflows, or are you looking to guide water from the new roadway that you're building? Like, what is it that what are you looking to achieve with the rain garden?
I just messed up the line, but do you see these arrows here?
Yes.
This is the high point of the cul-de-sac. So the cul-de-sac slopes down from this high point and then comes this way.
Right.
So we were just treating the water quality portion of the of this roadway by putting in a bioretention and then letting it discharge directly into this open swale. It was just it was a natural place for the water to collect here in these cul-de-sacs, go into a bioretention facility for water quality, and then discharge it directly to the adjacent stream.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I'm just so opposed to culverted streams, and I've been to so many places where they've daylighted them. It's a thing that people are doing now because they realize the importance of the stream. To culvert 300 feet of the stream, I would imagine that when that was done, that somebody downstream must have experienced some difficulties, because it's a tremendous length of a stream to take out of production. So I guess if it's already been discussed, there's nothing I can do about it, but it's really disappointing. Talk about environmental impact. That's got a lot bigger environmental impact than taking out that rock for the sidewalk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know when that was done, but I know that's yeah, I'm not sure when that was when that happened.
But now with all the equipment would be the time that you could, reverse that wrong. I mean, with the equipment that you'll have on the site for doing this project, it would be, like the only time that you could reverse the wrong. So even I can see where you'd want to keep it culverted underneath the driveways and in between those, between the two driveways. But I don't understand why it would be culverted going down the slope and
here.
Yeah. It's just so strange that was done. It's like just, I know that a lot of things in the past have been done that are so crazy. We're living with all those things, but
yeah, you've got a pretty significant slope here too. That would be, I don't know the reason why it was done, but that, that you've got a pretty significant grade change here from here to where it does daylight. But I hear you.
Yeah. All right. So I will leave that if anyone else wants to comment. But my last, I would definitely like to see the plant list for the rain garden. I mean, I don't understand why we wouldn't see an actual plant list for that. If you are going to do the rain garden right next to the culverted stream, I would like to see that. And I also, I would have to say that I have never heard of a rain garden that didn't take much longer than 2 years to get established. So I would say 5 years would be what it should be. And then you're saying that it's going to be an easement. Does that mean that it becomes the town's problem for upkeeping it?
It's receiving the discharge the runoff from the road.
So who's going to be maintaining it in theory?
The town.
Right. So that's not happening. Just telling you now. They're having a hard time keeping the parks up. It's limited staff. I don't know how they'll ever staff that. So I just don't even see the point of putting a rain garden in. I really don't, because it's just going to be a wasted effort. But anyway, they're really hard to maintain when someone is maintaining them, and to have it without maintenance is going to be really difficult, and there's just no staff. And I don't see that there's flush times ahead for the town, so I don't know how they're going to get more staff to do that. So then I'll go on to the next one. My last is the trees. So I was looking into Tourview, and that's a summer pool or swim club. So what's been proposed is a lot of evergreens. You don't need evergreens for summer. The better planting would be deciduous trees. We live in it still has remnants of a deciduous hardwood forest, and developers keep coming in and taking out the deciduous trees and putting in evergreens, and it is dramatically changing the environment. And in this case, it's not going to look natural. It's also where I looked on the GIS, there's already a deciduous canopy of trees down there. I don't know how you would plant evergreens underneath a canopy of a deciduous tree. So I just really object to those evergreens. If you wanted to put a few in, but there's like, I counted them up. There's like, on this project, you're proposing 137 evergreens and 73 deciduous trees. Well, before, with the existing conditions, the pre-existing conditions here, the only evergreens were that line of trees that someone planted, the line of pines that someone planted. The trees are, it should be deciduous and it doesn't look natural. Also the trees along the Rinaldi Road, you have red cedars. Like every 30 to 40 feet, you have a red cedar. It would be far more attractive to have, a deciduous tree-lined street. I mean, this is what our community looks like. So I would ask if you would consider changing that and maybe diversifying the list a little bit more so there's not so many of one specific type of tree. Also, I think Valerie mentioned in her memo something about street trees. It'd be really good to have trees along the road, along Stormytown Road side. So it looks, I think it would be more attractive than having just lawns. So, that's if you could put some of the trees there and not have so many evergreens. That would be and then finally is what I brought up last time is I don't understand how the trees are going to be planted in an extremely steep slope. It would be my understanding that you're going to put 4-inch diameter caliber trees. I don't know how you would plant those in an extremely steep slope or water them afterwards. And that I didn't get any answers to. So I would prefer that the trees would be staggered rather than wall-like in a line, and then put in flatter portions of the slope where there's areas where it flattens out a little bit, where the lines aren't so close together. Because I don't know, unless you can tell me how you're going to put those giant roots into the side of a cliff, I don't know how you're going to do it.
Mr. Chairman, I think these are all really great comments, Donna, and I think we should definitely look into all of these, and we have a couple. I know we'll definitely this applicant will be back next month. I mean next planning board meeting, but there is a public hearing tonight, Mr. Chairman, and I thought maybe it might be good if we can take the board's. We have actually 3 public hearings tonight. Maybe we can take the board's comments at the end, and I believe that some members of the public are here to speak on this application. If it's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, maybe we can open that public hearing.
We'll go back to the board members afterwards. I believe Mr. Taliano wanted to speak, or 12 of you?
Yes, thank you very much. The club, as you know, is adjacent to the proposed development. Our primary concern is the runoff from that stream. We call it a stream, but sometimes it's a river. We have fields and we have tennis courts that on the west side of tennis courts is that stream, which originates, I guess, up on Stormytown Road. I'm not sure exactly where it starts, but it runs along the west side of our parking lot and our fields and our tennis courts. And there are times where this is a raging river, and we are very concerned about washing out our fields and our tennis courts. So we just want to be on record, voicing our opinion about that, and to ask, if we can get a little better explanation of how that stream is going to be handled from the end of our property.
Does the applicant want to respond to this time?
Yeah, the stormwater has been designed and we're required to mitigate the additional runoff from caused by the development, which includes the removal of trees. So the design anticipates what the runoff is in the existing condition, that has a certain cover type and the proposed condition, and that's how we model the stormwater system, so that the end product at the rate of more than what's in the pre-existing condition. So in terms of whatever the stream is doing now, we're compelled to design this and provide enough storage on site so that we're not adding to or creating more water in that stream during a flooding condition or during any storm event, really.
Also, just want to point out that we did discuss these comments also during the preliminary and early in the stage that they have a meeting. I don't remember if it was with the gentleman, but we did have a meeting with the Torview board members at their office, and we did present them the project. We took their concerns into heart, and we did, I think, address them, and we went through the stormwater as well.
And as Donna mentioned, that a coverted stream, I mean, I don't know how you're going to handle a coverted stream. It's just going to fill up with trees and junk, and I don't know how you're going to manage that, but that's not our issue unless it backs up into our property. But as far as her mentioning the trees as well, that kind of parallel our tennis courts, it looks like you're planting a few evergreens after removing all of the natural trees that are there. And we also have some concern about the amount of trees that are being planted, being able to absorb any runoff.
Okay, is there any other members of the public wish to speak? Sandy?
If anybody would like to speak, they can use the raise their hand icon.
Okay. Jim, did you have any more comments at this time? Gareth, do you have any comments or questions at this time?
Nothing substantial, but I did want to mention one thing. Donna brought up the issue of the guardrail, and I was thinking, and mostly for the benefit of the view from Torview Club, is that if that could be made out of, the thick wood, the kind of guardrails you see in like national parks, you can get both the safety function and have them look a lot more, natural. Just, aesthetically, it would be a significant improvement. That's a suggestion.
Carolyn, do you have any questions or comments at this time? Carolyn, you're muted.
Yeah, no. I guess I wonder if we want more information, as was discussed, about the sidewalk issue. But also, I guess one of my concerns had also been the lack of variation of the trees. So that Donna addressed that. I thought there were too many of the same type of trees. And if we get into a situation where something attacks that tree, we're going to wind up with a real problem. I was also concerned about, again, Donna raised, was the, I don't know if anything can be done about the stream and daylighting it. So that's kind of.
Thanks, Carolyn. Jim, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
I think Gareth and Donna addressed most of my comments, but I'd be interested in seeing some additional information on daylighting some of that stream. I think it would help with alleviating some of the the water that eventually ends up downhill.
I'm not sure how the correlation between daylighting it and alleviating water downhill. Maybe
Because we'd be exposing it to the soil along that run, and it would be absorbed into the soil on the upper side of the property. Obviously, it would continue to move down with the slope, but during its path, instead of riding through metal, it would be riding through soil, and it would be absorbed at the top of the hill. It would probably alleviate some of the issues that Torview is concerned about as well.
Yeah, there's only a very, I mean, I guess you have the portion that's within lots 3 and 4 now, but then you have that steep slope going down to the daylight area. But I see what you're saying.
It's probably only an issue during a severe storm event, but during those severe storm events, I think Torview in the past has had some damage down below. So whatever we could do to prevent any water from going down there, it would probably be a good thing for everybody involved.
Torview's had a complete court washout from that stream. So
what the board needs to keep in mind is that, generally speaking, on a channel like this, there's always some low flow. So the stream bed would always be saturated. So there's really typically not a lot of room for groundwater percolation during a storm event, simply because the groundwater is above the channel bottom. And I guess what we want to make clear, or make sure everybody understands, that if we substitute daylighting the channel for the rain garden, these are sort of exclusive functions we're talking about. The rain garden is there to attenuate the peak flows originating from the pavement. Taking that out and just daylighting it will not have any attenuation effects. I mean, I think that any percolations in the ground, especially during a storm event, would be negligible, whereas a rain garden could be sized to mitigate that increase of runoff coming up from the new road.
I was thinking it would be a combination of the two, but I'd be looking to you for guidance on that.
All right, no, I just want to make it clear that we don't want to take out a stormwater practice for the daylighting. If the two things can coexist, that would be a different matter. But I think on balance, if the issue at hand is to mitigate runoff downstream, the rain garden would be more effective than daylighting the stream.
I would think it would, as Jim said, it would be a combination of the two.
Right, I'm just saying that to not forfeit the rain garden for the sake of the daylighting.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And can I ask you a question? Because I find it really unlikely that the rain garden is going to be able to be maintained. Is there some other solution other than expecting the town to maintain a rain garden on this property? Would there be another way to do the same thing?
I mean, the other tools or practices that are available are the underground infiltrators, or doing this as a small, like, pocket detention pond. Which is somewhat of a different animal, but I suppose if the board knew what they wanted this thing to look like. I mean, ponds are easier to maintain. The highway department can just dig them out, but in terms of any plantings that would go in there, I would guess they might get a little beat up.
I mean, considering where the water's coming from, I'd be perfectly fine with infiltrators if if the applicant has a concern about what their yard is ultimately going to be looking like on these parcels. So I don't want to just start opening things up and having them lose valuable property to our concerns, but I definitely want to control the water and keep it from continuing downhill.
Understood.
Any other comments from the staff? Kathy? Valerie?
I think there's
Chairman,
another.
there's someone, John Brady has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Mr. Brady?
Yeah, I'm just curious, as being a member of Tourview, that what, as far as separating the two properties, I know you mentioned the evergreen trees or whatever, but is there going to be any type of like a retaining wall or fence or anything, or is it just going to be trees separating the property of Tourview and the applicant's new development? What's
Applicant, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, yes, there's a substantial height difference between the two properties. So landscaping was, we didn't have fence or retaining wall separating them, except there is a retaining wall at the cul-de-sac, and that has landscaping in front of it or adjacent to it.
So between your cul-de-sac and then you're going to have your the landscaping, and then it'll be Tourview's property. So that's, did you mention a retaining wall?
Yes, and from where you know, because of the height elevation between the two properties,
Right.
You'll be looking up to landscaping. I think Paul is sharing the screen. You're looking at landscaping. You're gonna, and there's wooded area in your side as well. So you'll be looking at a small portion for retaining wall and then landscaping along the wall, along the property. We're not clearing that much of that area along the property line.
Okay.
So this is elevation 250 in here. And our cul-de-sac is at elevation 290, I believe. I'm sorry, it's just really slow. But you've got over a 40-foot elevation change from one side to the other. So even, you know, you're not going to see, yeah, this is elevation 300. So you've got over a 50-foot elevation change between the two properties at the property line. So you're looking at an existing slope that's not being touched. I haven't done a cross section, but I don't think you're going to see much.
I agree.
So even the evergreens along the property line, you're not going to see. The retaining wall that we're putting stone in front of for the benefit of Tourview, you're not going to see. But you know, that's what we're proposing.
But your property will be 50 feet higher than our property. So you'll be looking down into our property, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Any other comments and questions from the public? Sandy? Anybody raise their hand? Okay. Is there no one else from the public? Nothing. Okay. Valerie, Kathy, any other comments from you folks?
I just wanted to add just quickly that I believe that the applicant should identify the specific property that is going to be the affordable lot, and that should be identified on the plat so that there's no issues in the future.
Good. Okay. Applicant, we expect to see another submission from you on this, obviously.
Yep, and we'll have the plat, which I know is the long-awaited next step. All the other details will kind of be incorporated in that as well, with a new site plan and coordinated drawings between JV and I.
Okay. Great. Please submit it give the staff enough time to review it beforehand. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, we're trying to move this along.
Do we need to keep the public hearing open?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, we're going to keep the public hearing open.
Do you want to adjourn it to the next public hearing, the next date that we have? For
October.
When is the next date?
October 21st would be the next date.
Okay. Will you have the applicant? Will you have the submissions in by that time?
Or November 4th?
Applicant? Are they gone already?
Hey, I'm here. I guess my professional staff has left. Did you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, all right. We're just going to keep it open for the next one, October 21st. And please have your staff contact our staff if it turns out that they can't submit it in time. Okay?
I will. Can I ask the question? And I have no problem. Why are we keeping the public hearing open? Are the issues addressed in now engineering, or are there more issues to be brought to our attention?
Well, as you heard through the meeting, there are a lot of issues that are still open, so that your staff has to address them all.
Yeah, but they're more design issues. No, not so much affecting. Again, I have absolutely no problem with the conversation. But what I have heard throughout everything tonight was there was more design issues in regards to locations of sidewalks, a culvert that's in existence already that we're looking to address, the rain garden, how the water gets down to the end of the culvert, and guardrail heights.
I just want to say we can't close the public hearing because you still have submissions to make. So we have to keep everything.
Okay, that's a procedural thing, and I appreciate it. And have a good evening, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Ekaji, New York. Am I pronouncing it right? For Marino 75 Ryder Road, the solar canopy system. Applicant?
Yes, that's right. We are here. This is Julia Magliozzo. I'm here representing EcoG tonight. Thank you again for having us. And I believe this is for our public hearing.
Yes.
Great.
Are there members of the public for this matter? Just so we know. Sandy? Okay. All right. Have you had, applicant, have you had a chance to look at the comments from our staff?
Yes, we have. And I'm happy to provide a few responses to those, although I will say we have not had a chance to address all of them. We did receive some of them just late in the day today, so I don't have responses for everything. But I did receive the comments from Valerie Monastra earlier this week. So I believe there were just a couple of outstanding items there that were action items on the part of the planning board. The only one that I wanted to address here is really the finding of whether this is considered a significant action under SECRA review. So to address some previous comments we'd received, we did submit an updated short environmental assessment form to designate a much smaller area of disturbance, which is more accurate to what will actually be occurring on site. So I do think that may affect the planning board's decision about whether this is a significant action. So I'm happy to take any other outstanding questions that there are there. Since Valerie raised that issue, I guess I would turn to her to see if she had anything else that she wanted me to address on that.
Okay, Valerie, you want to go over your comments?
Well, the comments were really that Julie is referring to were from last month, where I raised a couple comments in the revisions to the EAF because they specifically were identifying that they were going to disturb over an acre of land, but it turns out it's actually much less than that. It's less than like a half an acre. So that was adjusted. And at this point, I provided the planning board a draft of the part 2, which identifies if there's any significant impacts. And the draft that I provided you identifies each and every environmental impact as either no or small impacts that may occur. Another note is that the town of Newcastle actually sent a comment letter, which many of you received, and they had a couple concerns dealing with visual impacts as well as noise. Both of those both the visual impacts and noise have been addressed by the applicant. The visual impacts, there was some additional information provided to you last month as part of the submission, just basically with photos identifying how the proposed solar canopies will not visually impact from Ryder Road, let alone from the town of Newcastle. So that will be something that we can easily address in any sort of final environmental review from the planning board.
Okay. Sandy, could you make sure that Newcastle is made aware of the new submissions that address those matters?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Any other comments from the staff at this time? Dan?
So just
Yeah,
to note,
I'm sorry, I just had a short memo. Just wanted to get some erosion control shown on the plan, even though it's minor disturbance, there'll be some trenching, and just provide some details on how the pavement and lawn will be restored. And also just a detail on the plans for what the buried utility trenches are going to look like. So I think those are all probably standard things that will end up in the construction documents anyway. But other
Okay,
than
Val,
that, we have no issues on this.
Valerie, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, so if the planning board so wishes to make a determination according to seeker tonight, I feel you have the environmental record complete to do so.
Okay. Kathy, do you have any comments at this time or questions?
I mean, just as Valerie noted in her memo, you should first declare yourself lead agency and then make any secret determination.
Okay. Any comments and questions of the board at this time? Jim? I'm going to go around.
No, I'm comfortable.
Gareth?
I'm good with the plan.
Carolyn?
I'm good with the plan.
Donna?
So I didn't have a chance to look at that secret letter because I think it just came in, right? That Valerie, your note.
You're talking about the Newcastle? You know, you talking about the short secret?
Yeah.
They simply said that they wouldn't trigger off anything.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And the other thing is, Julia, did I understand that you said that the project is smaller now? Was I reading your comments correctly, that it's a smaller project than had originally said?
Yeah, so you may be referring to two separate comments which we submitted.
Okay.
The first is that the area of disturbance that we had listed on our environmental assessment form is now significantly smaller. We had initially misinterpreted that to mean basically the area that was going to be occupied during construction, which resulted in a larger number, when in fact it means really where we're performing excavation or otherwise disturbing the top layer of soil. So that area significantly decreased in this new environmental assessment form that we submitted. And the second thing is that the two of the canopies themselves of the structures are actually slightly smaller than what we submitted in our original plans. So they're just a few rows shorter, and that was more of a material procurement decision on our part in working with the manufacturer. It actually made more sense from a materials and procurement standpoint to make those a little bit smaller. So they have the same number of footings, but they're missing a few rows on one end. So they're a little bit shorter on the south canopies.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a motion to have us become the lead agency?
I make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Jim, how do you vote?
4.
Gareth?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
And I agree as well. Okay, what's our next step, Valerie? Kathy?
Sorry, if you feel comfortable to what Valerie prepared with the part 2 to issue a neg deck.
Okay, any discussion from the board? Jim?
I'm comfortable with what we see.
Gareth?
I too am comfortable with what we see. It's neg deck.
Carolyn?
I think it's appropriate.
Donna?
I'm okay with it. Based on
I'm okay with it as well. Okay, so we can declare neg deck? Kathy? Valerie?
Yeah. You can say that there's no significant environmental impacts and issue a negative declaration, and you will not require the preparation of an EIS.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to that effect?
So move.
Seconds?
Second.
Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gareth?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I agree as well. What's the next step?
And I'll have
Kathy?
official negative declaration for you to review at your next meeting.
Great, okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this matter? Nobody's raising their hand? Sandy?
I don't see anyone with their hands raised on here, on this application.
Okay, so we'll keep the public hearing open on this.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Quick,
To Valerie?
Donna.
Yeah. So you said that you could possibly put a condition of approval to replace any screening that is damaged or dies. I think that's a great suggestion.
So just for clarification, tonight we were just doing the negative declaration, but yes, once we get to an approval resolution, that will be an additional vote from this board once you feel that the applicant has provided you enough information and has addressed most of the comments from the consultants, and then we can add those as a condition of approval. Absolutely.
Great.
Okay, so can we have a motion to keep the public hearing open until October 21st, unless you need more time, Julia?
No, I believe we should be able to submit everything. If I understand correctly, the only outstanding comments are those we received from Dan regarding just an erosion control plan and about.
Very good. So we'll expect you coming back on October 21st. Then can I have a motion to that effect?
Kathy, do we need a motion to keep the public hearing open?
Yes, because
Okay.
I believe that you're going to actually be considering a formal neg deck form that the consultants will prepare.
I'll so move.
Second.
Gareth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Jim?
Yes.
I agree as well. Okay, see you October 21st.
Yes, and at the next meeting, this board can consider potentially, and if the applicant provides everything and approving to approve the particular application, and the board will also need to consider any sort of recommendation you want to send over to the town board as well with regards to the actual zoning text amendment that the applicant is proposing. And Kathy can walk you through all that next meeting.
Would it make sense for the board to direct preparation of a draft recommendation that you can consider at your next meeting too? So this
Yes, do that, please.
Okay.
Okay, anything else that needs to be done on this matter right now? Valerie, Kathy?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good night, Julia.
Thank you. You too.
Next item on the agenda is 3 Waterview Drive, the new single-family residence architectural review. Public hearing. Is the
Yes.
applicant here?
I'm here, Lou DeMason.
Great. Have you received actually, you've made a lot of changes. Have you received the comments from our staff?
Yes, I received comments from Valerie, and I believe there was comments from Dan, but I did not get a chance to review those comments.
Okay. You want to respond to Valerie's comments?
Yeah, the only question I have is you're asking for the size, shape, and location of existing and proposed construction. This is a new, vacant piece of property. So what do you want to see on this plan, if anything?
I think really it's part of the application process for any BAR or ARB review. It's really to look at, I understand you provided an aerial, but I think it's really looking at the actual on the aerial and in comparison to where the other property or the other residential buildings are. I think the board has asked in the past that they'd like to see the comparison between where the location of the proposed house is along with the actual buildings on either side.
And an aerial doesn't provide that?
The aerial you provided actually shows the lot, but not the actual building on the aerial itself.
Oh, okay. So superimpose that on the aerial possibly? I'll figure something out to show the board that.
I mean, that was really just so that if the board has any additional concerns with comparison as to where the location of the house is going to be, comparing it to the other existing buildings and the neighboring properties.
Is that something that I should ask the board if they require, or is that just something that we
It's-
need to do?
Well, it's technically part of the application process, but if the board feels that they don't need that information, then at this point, we can continue moving on. I'm just highlighting a few of the outstanding items that, would technically make this application complete according to the ARB regulations.
Okay, thanks, Valerie. I mean, Mr. Chairman, is that something that you and the board members think you need to see?
Yes, I believe that would be standard for our request.
Okay, I'll take care of that then.
Any other questions or comments from the staff? Dan?
Yeah, my comments are very minor, so I don't have any real problems with this application at this point. They're just minor revisions that the site engineer would need to do.
Okay. All right, so we'll expect the applicant to be able to handle those comments at the subsequent date. Do we have any questions or comments from the board at this time? Anybody? Sandy, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this? I see Ms. Lopez raising her hand.
Yes, please, whenever you tell me that it's okay.
Any questions or comments from the board right now?
I have a couple questions. I just saw that there's ground lights. What is that? The ground lights?
There's no ground lights. Where are you seeing that?
I don't know. Maybe I have the wrong thing.
Yeah, this is 3.
It's an old one. I don't know. It says it on there. Maybe that's the neighbors? It might be the neighbors. I don't know.
No, we're not proposing any ground lights.
Okay, 'cause there's 3 spots that say ground lights. I don't know what that is.
Well, the lights that are on the house are going to be the low voltage, so, the standard.
Right. No, I remember you saying that. I just see it like listed on there, so I didn't know what that was. And are you putting a wall up? Is that something you're putting a wall in the back, a retaining wall or something?
Yeah, that was always on the plans. It's a retaining wall to hold back some of the earth so we can make the area of where the house is going a little flatter.
So do we have what that looks like?
What the
wall looks like? How's it? Is it?
I could get a sample of what we're proposing for the next meeting.
Great. So other than that, it's pretty simple. I see that you got the trees are in the. So I definitely understand putting evergreens on the 2 sides because you have the driveway, the next door, the abutting driveways are so close, and that you probably want privacy. So I get that. But in the front, you have maples already there, and then you're proposing more maples. So it'd be really good to have some diversity in those plantings. And in the back, instead of looking through the neighborhood, because I drove through the neighborhood, and there's a lot of deciduous trees. So the back would, I think, look less fortress-like if it had more deciduous trees rather than the evergreens in the back. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I thought that was addressed, but I'll make sure that the landscape architect had corrected that. So I'll take a look at that.
Okay, great. But it's great that you're putting them back there. I think that's a really nice addition, and the house, I think, looks really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Okay.
Hey, yeah.
Gareth?
So regarding the retaining wall in the back, it looks like it's 4 feet high. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. And ideally, aesthetically, and in keeping with that neighborhood, that should be a dry build stone wall. There are many such in neighboring properties. So I would encourage you to build it that way. It sounded from your comment about a sample of material that wasn't what you were thinking.
No. Let's backtrack it. Freddie Pozzella and their family are great masons, and it's going to be a great wall, and better than any wall that Donald Trump would build. And I'll make sure I get some samples from Mr. Pozzella. So don't have no concern about that.
But no. I'm asking about the material set then. What are they planning to use? I'm sure they're fantastic masons, but I'm talking about the material.
Okay, Freddie, do you want to unmute yourself and tell them what you want to use for the wall, please?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. We want to blend and kind of make it look like it was there. We've done several walls there in that neighborhood and that subdivision over the years, going back 25 years ago, and usually we use a native stone from the area.
So what we'll do is take pictures of those walls and try to match those walls as best as we can.
Native stone from the area, that it's music to my ears. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Carolyn? Jim?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Ms. Lopez, I believe you went to speak.
Hi, thank you very much for hearing me out. So I live a couple of houses down from 3 Waterview Drive, so very interested to see the plan and hear the plan for construction of this new house at 3 Waterview Drive.
Right, could you just say what your address is?
Sure, I'm at 9 Waterview Drive.
Okay.
Great. And so one question I have for the board and for the planners is, how are you thinking about the driveway? And I ask you that question because when I come out of 9 Waterview Drive, you literally have to stop and look both ways about 7 times before you exit. There's an island right there by the property. I don't know if you can see it on the plan. And it is dangerous to get out. Unfortunately, our neighbors drive a little bit faster than I'd like them to. And the island is actually an obstruction. Unfortunately, the town put trees in there, or somebody put trees in there, and it's hard to see to the left when you're coming out. And so adding another driveway, while of course it's going to be critical to the property, is going to mean yet another source of agita when you're coming out of there, so you avoid a collision. So I would love some attention to that issue so that we don't end up with pedestrian accident or car accident literally right in front of our houses, because we're kind of close. I'm just curious as to whether you've noticed that, Mr. DeMasi, just to see what thoughts are on that.
Sure.
You want to respond?
Yes. What I'll try to do is share a screen with you so you could take a look.
That'd be great, thank you.
Valerie, now I see why you would want an aerial to show that. So that's good to realize that. So Ms. Lopez, we're entering around this area here. So this is the island that you're talking about. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So we're entering here. So there's a lot of, activity happening here. So that's why we're not entering off of this. I think it's going to be more dangerous.
Yeah.
So we're entering across here, which I think is the best spot to enter, both for 2 reasons, just where it is on the site and also the topography.
Yeah, and that would make sense to me because that curve that you were pointing to before, that is definitely a wicked little curve. That's where you have to come around and pause 7 times. But if you put the driveway right on Waterview, that should be really helpful. And the driver should be able to see left and right. One question I have is whether the board actually wants to, as part of this, add mirrors or a stop sign or something in addition there to help us keep the order and the safety of the neighborhood with the addition of the house. Obviously, that's not for you all, Mr. DeMasi, but more for the town, because that island is there and it is a really tricky obstruction. And it is not very well taken care of, to be frank.
It's not something that I can address for you. I'll leave that to the Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I don't know whether it's something that we would have to actually look at the traffic more carefully to see whether any particular mirrors or anything like that would be adding. But wouldn't that be a traffic for the superintendent to handle? Has that been a continuing issue with us? Dan?
That has been a continuing issue that we've raised, but it's never really been addressed. And again, I have no objection to the property. It makes perfect sense, and I actually like where the driveway is going to go. I'm just thinking that with the addition of yet another set of cars coming out of there, it's only going to aggravate the situation. And I would love to see the town take the opportunity to focus on that little corner to make sure we're safe coming out of there, all of us, including the new buyers, new owners.
Okay, if the applicant would just take a gander at the issue and see whether it would be somewhat easy for anything near his property to go and have an effect on that matter?
Was that for me, Mr. Chairman? I didn't catch that.
Yes.
Let's say that once again, sorry.
Perhaps you want to take a look at seeing whether there's something that you could actually enhance the safety of your whoever's the new resident at your location. It can be easily handled.
Well,
just to take a look at it.
Yeah, but Ms. Lopez said our driveway is fine. It's more the island that's the problem. That's not something that I could address. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
Is that
Any
correct?
other questions?
I do think it's an issue for the town, not so much for the Mr. Demasi. I think the town should look at that again with the addition of the new home.
I can raise that issue also with Paul Frioli and P. Connolly, since we're going to reach out to them anyhow for the other application.
Okay, let's get some type of response from them. That'd be fine. Other members of, any other members of the public? I see Ms. Schwartz.
Sorry, Ms. Schwartz. Can I ask one more question for Mr. Demasi, if that's okay?
Sure.
Go ahead.
What is the timing and duration of construction, if you have any idea?
Well, as soon as we get the building permit, Mr. Pozzella will probably put up the house within eight months.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Ms. Schwartz?
Yes, hi. I live at 1 Waterview, and I just want to second what Lucy Lopez has just said about that island. And I think that island could actually be a bit of an obstruction even for the new driveway coming in on 1 Waterview. I very rarely go around that island, but when I have, it's very dangerous and it's very hard to see. And I think even the new driveway where it's proposed may still have an issue with the sight line. So I think it's important to look at that.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
We have someone,
John Lyons, yeah.
Hi, good evening. John Lyons, 16 Quaker Bridge Road, Ossining. I guess in 20 years, maybe I just didn't have both my eyes open. I had no idea there was a building lot there. But in fact, 3 Waterview was never developed when the rest of Waterview was developed, just more curiosity than anything.
It's a building lot. That's a viable building lot. So we're trying to build a house there. Yes, it's been on there for, I guess, since the subdivision was built, and this is one of the last lots. So.
Yeah. Okay. Just curious. I guess the picture tells 1,000 words. That's all I have. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the public? Okay. I don't see any at this point. Any other questions, comments from the board or the staff?
Yes, I have a comment, Mr. Chairman, Freddie Pozzella, the builder there. I think the issue with the island is over the last 25 years, I don't think it's been maintained. If you look at the plants, the shrubs, they're really getting to the point where they do obstruct the sight line. I don't think it's an issue of where the curb cuts and driveways are, because originally it was designed and approved that way. But if you look at the plantings in the island, they're kind of starting to encroach curb lines and sight lines. So that may be something that the town wants to look at.
Very good. Okay. Valerie, Kathy, what's our next step on this?
If the board wants the consultants to work on preparing an approval resolution to consider at the next meeting, I don't know if we're at that stage yet or if there's additional items that need to be addressed.
I believe we still have some additional items to address.
Mr. Chairman, the comments are very minor. I definitely can handle that, so I'd like to prepare a resolution if that's possible.
Very good. We'll expect to see you appearing for the next meeting then. We'll have the staff prepare a resolution.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to continue the public hearing?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Hey, Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
I agree as well. Anything else needs to be done for this matter tonight? Valerie, Kathy?
Could I say one thing?
Sure.
Just getting back for a second to the discussion of the stone wall.
Yes.
If your plan to build it with the native stone in a dry fashion, I believe, as the other ones are, could you note that on the plan?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the Borrego Solar Systems at St. Augustine Church, 381 North Highland Avenue, battery storage system, site plan review. Applicant here?
Yes, good evening.
Hello, yes, we're here.
Okay, have you had a chance to, well, actually, Valerie, were there any comments on this?
This particular application, yeah, I actually have a number of comments. It might be best if they present first to the board, their
We're good.
overall project.
Okay. Applicant? You're up.
Sure, I'll start off here. Greg, I don't know if you want to try to share a screen while I'm...
Sure thing.
Very good, thanks. So my name is Mike Conway. I'm from Borrego Solar. We're proposing a battery energy storage system at St. Augustine's Church. The battery energy storage program is a joint effort between Con Edison, the local utility, and the state's energy agencies, most prominently NYSERDA, to add more as part of the Climate Leadership Act, the CLPCA, to augment the existing electrical system with a more resilient and carbon neutral electrical system. This proposed battery system is sort of part and parcel with that plan. One of what we believe will be sort of many systems like it that are installed across the state. The objective of the system is to reduce stress on Con Ed's system times when there is peak demand, which is primarily when the oldest and dirtiest power plants are coming online. And so the most immediate objective here is to get some carbon neutral resources online to hopefully be able to retire some of the more prominent polluters in the downstate region, particularly with the nuclear plant Indian Point coming off the line in Peekskill in the next couple of years. So we've got here is about 10,000 square feet, so a little bit under a quarter of an acre in the back of the church, up on some vacant land that they've got on the northwestern portion of their parcel. With that, Greg, do you want to take over and sort of go over the nuts and bolts of the project?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, as Mike alluded to, this is on the St. Augustine's property. They do have a substantial amount of available space in the northern section of the lot. The lot line that you can see is denoted in purple. This is just a colorized version of the plan that was provided to the planning board previously. The lot is surrounded by the Croton River, which soon after flows into the Hudson River. It's part of the estuary, and Route 9 and Route 9A to the east. The site is elevated approximately 60 feet above the high water mark of the river. It's very, the offset to our system is about 100 feet. The 100 foot was kept per, DEC and town requirements. However, like I said, there's an elevation change of 60 feet from where our site would be and the river. The access road will be off of the existing ring road, which runs through the campus. the campus consists of the church and the school and the rectory. There's a ring road that runs through. Our access road will be a 20-foot wide gravel access road, which will be capable of, handling any of the design loads and vehicles that are required for it. There will be a 7-foot fence that's denoted in red surrounding the system. That will be, we listed in the plans, I think, green slats or vinyl slats. We can change the color if we need to. The system is very well tucked into the existing site. There will not be any view from any abutters or really even the school because of the elevation changes and the way this is a mature forest around the entire site. You really won't have any visuals even from the St. Augustine's property of the system. I don't think that adding additional landscaping will really, help anything. It's a really tucked back in. We aren't actually removing any trees. We're just going on open space that they have that they are not using any longer. There will be a trench, medium voltage trench, which is denoted in blue, that runs along from the system underground along the access road, along the existing access road, which is gray here, and then over into another stubbed, 20-foot wide gravel access road that then interconnects right where the entire St. Augustine's property draws power off of this existing route from Route 9 right here, and we will also interconnect our power from that location. The system, it's a grid stack battery storage system. I know the planner asked to see some architectural profiles in his review. It's about 8.5, 9 feet in height with maybe up to a 1-foot foundation, like concrete slab foundation. These are individual concrete reinforced steel containers. The batteries, are within each container, so that each individual battery is separated from another. I'll let Mike talk to that more in a second. But basically, the system is very well secluded from any outside view, like I said, or any outside impacts. We do have endangered species on site. However, we should not be impacting any of them. The endangered species being the bald eagle. We won't be clearing any trees, so we shouldn't have any impact to their habitat. And then the other species identified are all based on the estuaries habitat, which we will not be affecting at all. There is the wetlands. There are no wetlands identified on site except for the actual river. We do have like a spillway that's identified as Army Corps wetlands. However, since this drawing was put together, we do have an actual wetland delineation that shows that those aren't in fact present there anymore, or they were not delineated as part of our professional delineation. One other item I'd like to discuss, I guess, that was mentioned by the planner is a potential variance for the fence. Per the town code, I think we shouldn't need a variance for a 7-foot fence, even though the town code says 6.5 feet. But that code is specifically referencing fences. Here's the comment. Besides a special permit, and a height variance is 0.5 feet will be required from the ZBA. Fences or walls over 6.5 feet in height may not be erected in front, rear, or side yards. But per the town code, the front, rear, and side yards are specifically when you're adjacent to another property and within that front, rear, and side setbacks, which in this case are 30, 16, and 34 feet. We have substantially more width from our system to any of those yards. So I don't feel like a variance should be required for a 7-foot fence in this case when it's very much in the middle of our site. I'll let Mike talk a little bit more about the the technology and safety that's involved, built into this system. Mike, I'll pass it back to you.
Sure. I'll be brief here, as I expect we'll likely be back in front of this group and with some combination of fire department and/or first responders to discuss system operation and safety in greater detail in the future. But I will just briefly say that these, safety is paramount for these systems, both for these systems as they exist in the industry and the sort of ecosystem of vendors and integrators that put these things together, but also within our organization, as safety is a sort of core tenet of our organizational goals. And with lithium-ion batteries, safety is extremely important. And these systems are, quite sophisticated, and we're continuously monitoring thousands of data points on each battery cell of the system, from their operating temperature to their operating characteristics of, voltage, current, and resistance, high and low set points of each one of those, as well as the ambient temperature within their containers, such that, parts of the system can be shut down, parts of the system can alarm, and that sort of alarms can be escalated appropriately based on their priority. As I think I was alluding to a moment ago, they're climate controlled as well. They sort of have essentially an air conditioning and heating system embedded within the container to keep the batteries from experiencing any sort of mechanical abuse that would come from overheating or freezing in the wintertime. And most prominently, in terms of fire safety, they include a fire detection suppression system that releases a clean agent called Novec 1230, which is essentially a special purpose fire suppression substance that is released and floods the container, and would serve to extinguish any spark sort of as soon as an event were to begin. We provided some more detail on that in our safety memo, and I expect it will get into further detail when we go, get a little further down the line and get into fire safety training with first responders, et cetera. But I don't want to suck up too much of the oxygen on the call here tonight. I'll leave the introduction to the fire safety at that, unless there are more detailed questions on it from the board.
Okay, Valerie, you want to comment at this time?
All right, so I'll try to be brief. I'm sure the board received a memo. I'm just going to start off a little bit with seeker and procedural comments. As the board knows, this is the first actually battery energy storage application that you've received. So we'll be working through this application probably very closely with Dan Ciarcia, as well as the fire department, and John Hamilton, the building inspector. So seeker, this proposed action would be an unlisted action. So the planning board should consider circulating a notice of intent to be lead agency to commence the seeker process tonight. Zoning, in terms of the variance, I will follow up with John Hamilton on his interpretation of whether a 7-foot fence and the location that they're proposing would require a variance or not for the height. County board referral, this project will require a referral from the Westchester County Planning Board per section 239 of the New York State General Municipal Law. In terms of the environmental review comments, the applicant did provide a full EAF. There was just a couple of minor edits I suggested that the applicant make to the environmental assessment form. But I do want to make note that while this particular project was, if you go through the environmental assessment form, you will notice that it does have, potential contamination history, wetlands on the site, floodplains, threatened or endangered species, and also archaeologically sensitive resources. A few of those, as the applicant has commented, the potential contamination history, the wetlands, and the floodplains are actually more related to the property boundaries near the Hudson River. And as you know, that there is an elevation change in the location of the proposed battery energy storage will not affect those environmental resources. However, the New York State DEC did submit a letter requesting additional information dealing with threatened or endangered species or those habitats, as well as SHPO did provide a letter requesting additional information on either a Phase 1A or B archaeological survey, especially for the components of the project that will involve ground disturbance. So we're recommending that they provide responses to those agencies as part of the record. In addition, the site plan comments, we are just asking we're suggesting that the applicant provide a few more details on the plans, including the architectural profiles, which they I clearly showed tonight, but it would be good to have that as part of the overall package. Again, also the site plan identifies a 7-foot fence, maybe providing details of the materials of the proposed fence, as well as the hardscape that they're proposing for the driveways and the widths. While I believe some of that information is in the addendum report that they provided, it would be good to have that on the site plan. And then I'm also recommending that the applicant provide information, or the applicant provide information on the noise levels and lighting plan for the proposed battery energy storage facilities. In addition, I think this application should be referred to the Ossining Fire Department and the Building Inspector John Hamilton for their review and comment, especially on compliance with fire safety codes as well as emergency access to the battery energy storage facility. And then the town of Ossining is actually looking to adopt a model law based on NYSERDA's model law for battery energy storage. And as part of the NYSERDA model law, there are a couple other additional plans that are highlighted, and that includes a decommissioning plan, operation and maintenance plan, and emergency operations plan. And so I'm suggesting that the board consider requiring those as part of the overall submission package to model the NYSERDA law, but also for the fact that it really does, there is a lot of safety and fire concerns associated with battery energy storage facilities, and I think that additional information will help the building department as well as the fire department and Dan's review of the application.
Okay.
And those are my comments at this point.
Thanks. Dan, do you have any comments to add at this time? Dan?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. My comments are pretty minor. I think, you know, this is a conceptual plan. Once the applicant takes it to the next level, my comments related to just some details in erosion control. So and the applicant, I think, got my my memorandum this evening. So you know, they can certainly handle it in the next plan submission.
Okay. What's our next step on this matter then? Besides instructing the contact with the other agencies and also to ask for further information from the other officials, town officials?
Well, it doesn't seem like this application is in a position to set a public hearing yet. So I think that we should continue the preliminary stages.
Okay, all right. Gareth, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, hi. My internet went out for a few minutes there, so I'm not sure what you covered, but there were two things I wanted to ask about. One is that I'd like to see a large-scale aerial that goes all the way over to the Croton train station area. I'll tell you, I'm a little concerned about this site being as exposed as it is to that view shed from out in the water. It's very well hidden from Route 9 where you show it over here. But across the waterway, it might be something of an eyesore. I'm willing to be convinced by an aerial that's not the case, but I am worried about that because it's at the top of this cliff or this hill. It's an open area, and I'm afraid that this would look like sort of a big appliance on the hillside. I know that that area is actually, that area of the Croton River is a nature preserve of some kind. I'm not sure what the details of that are, but it's a natural setting and is experienced by thousands of canoers and kayakers, as such. So I'm just a little concerned about the view of this thing. The 7-foot sense with the green slats, that can look pretty bad in all honesty. If it does look like there is a view of it, I'd really like to see some very substantial plantings on that west side to block that view. But I think we need to see more to determine whether that is an issue or not an issue. Secondly, as a point of note, this is right above an area that is called Frank's Rock, which is a rock that extends into the river and is a historic site. It's written about in many places. I could show you. Right now, it's enjoyed by people who fish, fishermen, fisherwomen, and I believe they go through this property to get there. And that's been a traditional path for those fishing people. I would like to see that not disturbed if that's possible. And last, I wanted to ask about, there was something, a note I saw that this is a known archaeological area. I know that to be the case. And I wanted to ask when that archaeological survey was going to be done.
Yeah, we have our consultant ready to go. We wanted to just get some initial feedback from the town before we ordered that, but we will start the phase 1B right after this meeting and get that moving.
Great. So I'd like to point out that it should be mentioned in the request to that archaeologist, whoever you hire to do it, that this is adjacent to the so-called Piping Rock area, which was archaeological site where it's a very special site where they found stone tools and so forth going back 6,000 years, which is way before most of the Native American civilizations that we normally think of here. So it's a very special site in New York State, Piping Rock, and this is adjacent to it. So I just want to make sure that they are aware of that, so that they can take due consideration of those findings.
Understood. Yeah, I appreciate that, and we'll provide better photos and some better 3D imagery for you. You can see kind of on my screen. I have been onto the site. I did do the site walk personally. This entire bank is a fully vegetated, like thick forest the whole way up. Our system will be set back from that forested area. You can actually see on street view from across over by the Croton Harmon area. You can see our site is set back. You can see the church there. It's going to be like set up well up in in this area behind the trees. I think it would be possible to potentially take a couple photos, once the leaves fall, to see if there's any possible way we could see it. But from being on the site, I know that there's extensive it's a very thick forest, and I do have photos from being there that I can show you. So how many layers of trees are in front of it. So I do think that any view from the river will be non-existent, but we can try and better show that to you in our future submissions.
Okay. But what you've just showed me is pretty convincing. So thank you for doing that. love technology like this.
Correct. Yeah, it's pretty great. No
Thank you.
problem. Yep. But yeah, we'll make sure we'll tell our archaeological team to about those details. I'm sure they're aware of it. It has been flagged archaeological sensitive, so I imagine that information is within SHPO's database that they'll be reviewing as well. But yeah, we will provide that information as soon as we have it, hopefully with our next submission. But we will be providing that eventually.
Great. Please use the phrase piping rock.
Piping rock. Yep, I've got that written down.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, and just to say, I'm very much in favor of this proposal. I think it's a great thing. These battery, systems are an important component of dealing with, our energy challenges now. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the board at this time? Jim?
No, I'm good with what I've seen.
Okay. Carolyn, you okay? Oh dear. Okay. This is not a public hearing, but just to check, is there any members of the public want to have any comments at this time? Okay, don't see any. So what's the next step on this, Kathy, Valerie?
I had some comments.
I'm sorry, Donna, did I skip you? Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to try to be quick. Could you put back the thing you had before you did this, where it shows the topography? It shows the topography lines. Yes, yeah, so can you scroll it up so we can see? Bring the image up. Yeah. So it looks to me like where you see partial ID, where it says 28.2 acres, that the topography there, where you see those inverted V's, indicate that there's a stream at some point, maybe even just ephemeral. So I was wondering, when you had the soil, because I was very impressive, all the stuff that you submitted, by the way, all the soil information. Where did you get that information from? Is it just from a general database, or did someone actually go out and do soil samples?
Yeah, that would be just from the general GIS soil database. From being on site, I do see what you're showing here, what you're looking at here. It looks like there's probably been some erosion over time where, the water that comes off of, this is actually like an old playing field. So it is very flat. It is as flat as it shows on the contours here. So it seems that water has eroded this portion of the bank away faster than other parts of it. We are in the process of getting a full survey, which so a little bit more detailed in topography. So that'll be shown on the next set of plans.
Right, because there's a big hill on the other side, so it does make sense that the water has to go down somewhere. I mean, that's kind of logical. So I was wondering if we could, I guess it's a question for Valerie, if we could refer this to the EAC, since there is, it's an issue with possible stream crossing. I mean, it's something that would definitely be handled, but you're putting a road. So I just would like to know if there is some kind of water crossing at some point, even if it's ephemeral. Can we refer this to the EAC?
Yeah, no. I'm just looking. There's a stream on the site.
It doesn't look like it, but when you look at the topography over by where it says 28.2 acres, where that type is, if you look down towards the river, there's the inverted V's, which is usually a clear indicator that there's water going down.
Okay.
By the river.
No, I understand. I don't believe I don't believe there's a stream on site, but I mean, that's up to the board for if you want to do a recommendation to the EAC.
Just to have them do a site walk and look at the soil.
It's likely that water is coming down the existing road here. You can see that underneath our road, there's inverted V's there as well. This is some existing impervious that comes down, and it probably comes down a little bit concentrated during rain events and comes across. But this is, like I said, a playing field. There's 100% not any stream or river or anything resembling that on it, because it is level
Right, but if water
ground.
crosses it at some point and you're putting voltage things through, I think it would just be good information to have. I mean, the water has to go down somewhere. It's a big slope, so it has to go down somewhere.
But Donna, what stream were you thinking that it might exist if it's a flat playing surface?
Well, it's flat there, and then over by where the church is, there's a big hill. So there is water going somewhere down to the river, and that would indicate that it's there. So at some point, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll provide a much better topography map with our next submission, and we also, as requested by the engineer, will have a SWIP, which discusses erosion controls and potential stormwater measures required to make sure that nothing else leaves the site than we originally left it before we were proposing this project.
Yeah, that's not I guess my concern is that you'd be crossing through an area that possibly has, during large rain events or something, that water comes through there. So, which is something certainly you can manage. It's just, I think that should be known. So I'm just asking.
Yeah, that's something that we do have a professional wetland delineation report, and they look for wetlands and streams, they have delineated that, and we will have that confirmed. We've submitted boundary validation and jurisdictional determination to Army Corps and DEC already, and we will have that confirmed with them. And any streams would be identified in that report and confirmed. I'm not saying that we can't do what you're saying. I'm just giving you additional background of what we are going through with this process.
So they're actually coming out and surveying?
They've done it. Yep. I think that delineation was provided with the report with the EAF, I believe. I mean, there's nothing. They didn't find anything really on the site, but it's their professional opinion. It's not our professional opinion. So we do have that included, and then we will get it confirmed with Army Corps and DEC.
Okay. So all right. So I would prefer that the EAC looks at it, just because it's the environmental group in the town. But if nobody else wants it, then that's the way it is.
I just want to interrupt. Valerie's power went out briefly, so she's trying to sign back on.
Okay.
Here she is.
Mr. Chair, I just don't want you to forget to declare notice of intent to be lead agency and to direct circulation.
Right. Yes, why don't we have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Any second?
I second.
Great. Okay. Gareth, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, I agree as well. Jim?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Okay, that would be a majority. What else do we have to do, Kathy?
I think that we just need to, there has to be another submission. So I would ask the applicant how long they think they need.
We will respond to the comments provided by the planner and the engineer with the appropriate documentation. I believe we're waiting on our final survey. So whenever we get that back, we'll turn around a more substantial set of plans with more details. How long? I think hopefully by next month we could turn something around.
So do you think
guys
it'd be
meet bi-weekly
shooting for the November 4th meeting rather than the October 21st? That's probably not enough time.
Yeah, October 21st isn't going to be enough time, but November 4th sounds doable.
Okay. Do we need to specifically to schedule them for November 4th, or we could just wait for the submission? Valerie?
I believe we will wait for the submission. And if they submit 10 days ahead of time, then they'll be on the November 4th. If not, it'll go on to the next submission.
Okay, so nothing else has to be done on this matter tonight?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for your attendance. We'll look forward to your submissions.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
And so we had another request from MGM Design for another extension. What do we have to do with this?
I would just, if you think it's appropriate, to grant them a 90-day extension.
Okay, is there any objection to this?
Is 90 days enough?
Yeah,
They could always ask for another one.
Okay.
yeah, that's what seems to be happening. So, all right, can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion.
Garrett? Giving an extension?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Giving them an extension, MGM Design?
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Okay, wait a minute, I need a second.
Oh, second.
I thought Garrett. Okay.
Donna?
I wasn't involved in this. Should I be voting on this?
They're just asking for an extension.
All right, so I say yes.
Okay. I agree as well, so we'll inform the applicant of us granting the extension. Next items are the 2 minutes. Do we want to go over the minutes? Have people read them?
I read them.
Okay. Any discussion we need on the minutes?
I had
Okay,
actually
Kenneth?
I just had just one word. I'm really, really sorry. On page 4 on the August 19th. It's easy. Page 4, fourth line up. It's remove instead of moving. Removing. Okay, that's it. Other one's okay.
Do I have a wrong? I don't see the same line. Which?
On August 19th.
Okay. Which paragraph?
On page 4, last paragraph, fourth line up, first word. It says
okay.
moving.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's removing.
Got it. Okay, Sandy, make that change? Great. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Jim?
I wasn't there.
Oh, wait. You know what? Let's adjourn this until the next time. I don't think we have enough people here right now.
Okay, I was there.
You know, I'm sorry?
I was there.
You. We're talking about the August 19th.
I'm sorry, I was not there. I will not be voting on it.
Right, okay, so,
But he was there for September 2nd.
yeah. Let's have a motion for September 2nd. Any changes for it?
No,
Okay. Can I have a motion for September 2nd then?
I give the motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
The minutes on the September 2nd minutes?
Second.
Okay, Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Carolyn, how do you vote on the minutes for September 2nd?
Yes.
Okay, I agree as well, so we'll accept the September 2nd minutes, but, well, let's see. Okay, well, actually, why don't we finish off August 19th with the change that Donna mentioned? Could I have a motion to accept it?
I make the motion.
Second.
Jim, how do you vote? Oh, you can't vote. Okay, Gareth, how do you vote?
I agree.
Okay, I agree as well. Donna?
I agree.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Great, okay, so the minutes are accepted. Any other matters on the agenda? Sandy? Kathy? Valerie? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gareth?
We lost him.
It looks like
yes.
he said yes. Yeah, okay. Donna,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
I agree as well. Thank you. Have a good night.